Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Chaitanyam Sarvagam Sarvam Sarvabhuta Guhashayam Yat Sarva Vishayatidam Tasmai Sarva Vide Namaha. The fifth verse. Phale cha hetau cha jano vishaktavan iti prachintyaahamato vimokshane janasya samvadamimam prakluptavan swarupa tattvartha vibodha karanam. Swarupa tattvartha vibodha karanam. Swaswarupam Swarupam, one's true nature, Nitya Chaitanya Svabhava. What is my Swarupam, essential nature? Chaitanya Svabhava, of the nature of consciousness, Nitya Chaitanya Svabhava, of the nature of eternal consciousness, consciousness only, ever consciousness, nothing but consciousness. That is my essential nature. Meaning that other things that I may find in myself, unconsciousness, anityata, etc., all of this is not swarupam, not essential nature. And as Vedanta explained, that is mithya, meaning is not really there. All there is nitya chaitanyam, there is nothing else. Whatever else appears to be is just a projection, not a reality. Swarupa tattvartha vibodha karanam. That this is the Swarupa tattvartham. So, tattvartha, tasyartha, brahmanartha, the nature of Brahman. Vibodha karanam, that my Swarupam is Brahman. Nitya chaitanyam, which is Brahman. Vibodha karanam, vispashta bodha karanam. That Swarupa becomes the object of knowledge. I know, I realize that this Nitya Chaitanyam, Brahma, is my Swarupam, essential nature. There are many things that I think about myself, but all that nature keeps on changing. My nature also keeps on changing. Now karta, then bhokta, sukhi, dukhi, etc., etc. In all of them, what is essentially ever present, which does not change, is Chaitanyam, consciousness. Nitya Chaitanyam, eternal consciousness. And that is the unchanging, essential nature. Other things are all incidental. Vibodha Karanam. This dialogue, Ivam Samvadam, this dialogue between the self and the buddhi or ahankara, or Atma and Anatma, Satya and Mithya, these two are presented as though separate entities, because dialogue can take place only between two entities. And since that is what I think that I am the self and buddhi is buddhi. And thereby, since I take the buddhi to be different from myself, or the self to be different from buddhi, therefore, this dialogue. Ultimately recognize that buddhi has no separate existence, that buddhi is nothing, essentially nothing but myself. Vimokshane, for moksha, from liberation, for freedom. From what? Vishaktavan, because this fellow is deeply attached, variously attached. Phale cha hetau cha jano vishaktavan. Jana, this mortal being, this jivatma, vishaktavan by nature is variously deeply attached. Attached means seeing his security from there. Totally dependent upon that for the sake of one's happiness and security. Phale cha hetau cha. That is what the samsara is, the universe is, consisting of cause and effect. In that samsara, this one is deeply attached. First, because giving reality to samsara, that samsara is real. The universe of cause and effect, and the experience is really there. It enjoys an essential, independent reality, different from me. The question of attachment comes when there is duality. So not only do I see that it's real and separate from me, but favorable, unfavorable. So this is the relationship that I have of asakti, vishakti, deep and various attachment, which a shared attachment gives rise to likes and dislikes, which give rise to subsequent actions and karma phala and janma mrityu, etc. So this the reason is this asakti, vishakti. To the samsara made up of phala and the hetu. Thinking that it is an independent entity separate from me. Because as long as I take myself as jana or jiva, an individual, an ahankara, so long there is that separatedness. So it is this alone, this conclusion, this notion, this bhrama, which is the cause of all the sorrow. There is no cause for sorrow in our life other than thinking that the samsara is real as it is, and that I need the favor of samsara for me to be safe and comfortable. Without that favor, I am not comfortable. I am miserable. All my misery I trace to samsara, to favor and disfavor of samsara. Samsara is disfavorable, I am miserable. Samsara is favorable, I am happy. Since my happiness is extremely important to me, the only important thing to me, therefore the favor of samsara becomes very important to me. But samsara has its own idiosyncrasy, its own nature. And therefore it may not necessarily behave the way I want it to. Therefore I have to make it behave the way I want. That is where action comes. Samsara wants to do things in its own way because it is its own svabhava. And since I am not comfortable with samsara as it is, for my comfort I must make the samsara behave in the manner that I want. That's where action comes. I must manipulate samsara. What am I? Action is what? Changing, manipulating, not allowing samsara to do what it wants and compelling the samsara to behave as I want for my comfort. Samsara's behavior changes, unpredictable. So action that makes it favorable now, that very action may make it unfavorable then, That's a struggle in life. And they were never free from this struggle. Uncertainty. Hetu gives rise to phala. Karma becomes hetu, from which I want a favorable phalam or result. But since I do not control the result or outcome, I never know what the outcome will be, whether it will be favorable or not favorable. So uncertainty, anxiety, struggle. Sometimes when samsara behaves the way I want it to, then I am happy, which is not happiness, harsha or elation, which is the reaction. And more often than not, it doesn't behave the way I want, then I am dukhi. Also reaction, I am grieving. I am sad. So this is life. Vimokshane, ataha vimokshane. For moksha, liberation from samsara of this nature, not samsara of the nature of world. Because there is no bondage as it is. Bondage is purely because of my misunderstanding of what samsara is, what I am. So moksha can be only when there is the freedom from that wrong understanding. That's all that is required. Therefore, right understanding becomes important. And therefore, this dialogue, which when one deliberates upon, gives the right understanding of what this buddhi is mithya, doesn't have any existence of its own. What is not two entities, Atma and Buddhi, only one entity, Atma. Non-duality. There cannot be uncertainty in one. And no uncertainty in myself. Uncertainty comes when there are two independent entities because I don't know what it is. Dvitiyadvai bhayam bhavati. When that is independent of me, then there is uncertainty, anxiety, fear. Swarupa tattva vibodha karanam. So this dialogue becomes the cause or means of vibodha, vispashta bodha, of swarupa tattvartha, of the essential nature, the true nature of my own self. Therefore, The author, Adi Shankaracharya, says, that is why I compose this dialogue. You may ask, why, Maharaj, you have to compose this? For labha, puja, khyati, he says, no, no. Out of compassion, karuna. You are seeing this person suffering for no reason. If there was a valid reason for suffering of the human being, then also compassion will be there. Then of course perhaps the Upadesha will be of a different nature. Upadesha of this nature is determined by the nature of problem. Having said that, concluding the chapter, यतः एवं विदोयं संवादः, यतः because एवं संवाद एवं विदः, this samvada, this dialogue is of this nature. Swarupa Tattvartha Vibodha Karanam. The samvada is a means of knowing the essential nature of oneself or essential nature of everything. Essential nature. Therefore, what should you do with the samvada? Tasmat sadhya sadhana paryavarta lakshanat samsarat mokshavihi ayam anuchintaneti abhipretyaha. So since this samvada dialogue, the means of the essential nature, knowledge of the essential nature of oneself, and knowledge can take place of vichara, by deliberation. So what should you do with the samsara? Should you japa? Repeat that? What should I do? Regardless of what you do, there will be benefit, no doubt about that. But when will there be true benefit from the samvada? When anuchintaniya, when I constantly deliberate upon that. Then there arises understanding of what the samvada reveals. Everything reveals itself when the right means is employed. If something is covered by a veil, then removing that veil becomes a means. So knowledge is very much contained in the samvada. Saruva Vispashtartha Bodha, the clear knowledge of one's own nature is contained in the samvada. And so the samvada has to reveal that. But samvada, which is upadesha, this upadesha, reveals itself when it is subjected to vichara or deliberation. Here, mere japa or repetition is not the means. Swami, Aham Brahmasmi is not meant as a japa. Soham is not japa. Sri Ram, Jai Ram is for japa. Soham, Aham Brahmasmi is meant for deliberation, vichara. If you do japa, there will be some benefit, no doubt about that. But the true benefit from this statement, Soham, or Aham Brahmasmi, can be when it reveals its true meaning. When Tatparya is determined. And that is when I deliberate upon what the Tatparya is, what it is that is communicating to me. So this samvada, which is Upadesha, has to be deliberated upon. Meaning that to understand what exactly does it convey. What is the Tatparya? What is the purport? Not only grammatical meaning, but the intended meaning. Anuchintaniya. We should deliberate again and again, constantly. By whom? Mumukshuvihi. By the mumukshus. Those who are keenly desirous of moksha, of freedom. From where? Samsarat mumukshuvihi. Those who are desirous of freedom from samsara. What is samsara? The nature of hetu and the phala. That hetu, phalatmaka samsara is there. Which, what does it do? Paryavat lakshanat samsarat. What was earlier said as hetu, phalatmaka samsara is described here as Paryavarta lakshana samsara. Paryavarta paritah avartanam. Paryavarta paritah. Round and round, chakrakarena. Going round and round. That's called Paryavarta. Call it hetu phalatmaka. But hetu becomes phala, and phala becomes hetu, and that is how you go round and round. Come back again. Sometimes there is infinite regression, hetu. Sometimes chakratma comes back. So this samsara of the nature of hetu and phala brings you where you started. And you start again and come back. Paryavarta lakshanat. Sadhya sadhana paryavarta. Sadhya sadhana. Hetu phala. Or phala and hetu. Phala is sadhyam. Hetu is the sadhanam. So you can never get out of this shrinkhala or this bondage of sadhya, sadhana. You are always thrown from one to the other constantly. There cannot be respite from that. There cannot be peace of mind. There cannot be happiness as long as one is under the grip of the samsara. Therefore, we have to deliberate upon what is the nature of hetu and phala. I am in the grip of hetu and phala. The way to become free from this grip, which is what I am trying to do right now, to untangle myself through an action. But action again involves hetu and the phala. So very attempt to untangle myself from the samsara creates more entanglement. So the means of becoming free from hetu phalatmaka samsara is not karma, which is of the nature of hetu and phalatmakam karma. Means is jnanam, knowledge, understanding. Therefore, anuchintaniya, understand samsara. Understand life. Understand yourself. Understand things, that's all. You plunged into this without understanding, or with some understanding that you have. Gain the right understanding. And then decide whether you want to continue to do something or there is any need to continue. Therefore, yasmat evam vidoyam samsarah. Samvada. See, the samvada is the one that enables me to know the true nature of myself. And that knowledge is what releases me from this false entanglement with samsara, hetu and the phala, because both are mithya. What is only self? Self alone appears as hetu and the phala. It comes in all these different guise or costumes. Recognize costume as costume. Hetu is a costume. Phala is a costume. Hetu doesn't have reality. Hetu is only from the standpoint of phala. Phala has no reality. Phala is only from the standpoint of hetu. Meaning that both are standpoints. What is it of which this is a standpoint? And so when we realize that both of these are standpoints relative, meaning that both are only appearances. Whether matter is particle is a standpoint, so wave is a standpoint. And therefore there must be some reality about the matter, of which these two are manifestations or standpoints. Something that appears as wave and same thing appears as a particle. So also there is something that appears as hetu. The same thing from a different standpoint appears as phalam. What is it? So, anuchintaniya. This samvada is meant to help us understand that. Therefore, mumukshubhi anuchintaniya. The mumukshus must constantly deliberate upon this samvada dialogue, or upadesha in the form of dialogue, as a means of moksha, liberation from the samsara. And so these 6 verses. Samvadametam yadi chintayen naraha vimuchyate jnana mahabhayagamat vimukta kamascha tatha janas sada charatya shokas sama atmavit sukhi. Yadi etam samvadam nara chintayet. A human being deliberates upon this samvada dialogue. Vimuchyate, becomes liberated. Ajnana mahabhayagamat. Agama means attainment, the prapti. Bhayagama, gaining of bhaya or fear. Ajnana, born of ignorance. One becomes liberated from the fear which is born of ignorance. There is no real reason for fear other than ignorance. So what happens? Vimukta kama becomes free from all the desires. Ashoka, free from all the grief. Atmavid, this knower of the self, sukhi, becomes happy. Charati, then moves about. So the Tika says, Ajnana krutat mahabhayagamat samsaradityartha. Ajnana mahabhayagamat. That is the Visheshana of samsara. Ajnana mahabhayagamat samsara. From 5th case, from samsara, which is the bringer of fear because of ignorance. So Ajnana means Ajnana Krutat, Mahabhayat. The Mahabhaya, the great fear that is brought about by Ajnana, ignorance. Samsarat, again, Ajnana Mahabhayagamat is the Visheshana of samsara. Samsara is of nature Mahabhaya, of great fear. What's the cause of fear? Ajnana. So samsara of the nature of the great fear which is brought about by ignorance. From that kind of samsara. If samsara were of a different nature, then this samvada would not release you from the samsara. Since samsara is Mahabhaya which we experience, but the Mahabhaya or great fear is simply the product of Ajnanam, ignorance. And therefore Jnanam can eliminate that. Jnanam can only eliminate Ajnanam. Light can only eliminate darkness, cannot do anything else. Light cannot produce anything, nor does it destroy anything. Just reveals what is. What is darkness? Darkness is that veils what is. Darkness veils what is. And thus becomes an obstacle to our seeing what is. That's what darkness does. So what does light do? Light simply removes that veil, that's all, of darkness, and becomes instrumental in revealing what is. So therefore, if this Mahabhaya is born of ignorance, ignorance cannot produce anything real. Darkness cannot produce anything real. Darkness can produce all kinds of Brahma, projections, delusions, that it can do. I can see all kinds of forms and shapes, etc., which are not there. Darkness may create a lot of imagination in my mind because of fear. So when the light comes, when darkness goes, all that also goes away. There is no real reason for fear. Fear was purely caused by darkness, because imagine what is all there or not there. Fear was the product of my imagination, projection. In light, that goes away, therefore, the fear which is born of projection also goes away. So that is one way of explaining this compound of samasa. Ajnana mahabhayagamat samsarat. Adjective samsara. Yadva. Or you can explain that samasa differently. Mahabhayasya agama yasmat tat mahabhayagama mahabhayam ajnanam tasmat. The Ajnanam is explained somewhat differently. Mahabhayasya agamaha yasmat tat mahabhayagamat. Mahabhayagamat. Mahabhayasya, the Bahuvri compound. Mahabhayasya agama yasmat. Tat Mahabhaya Agama. Mahabhaya Agama means that from which there is Agama or attainment of Mahabhaya. What is that? So Mahabhagamat, Ajnanam. Ajnanam is that which is the cause of the gaining of this Mahabhaya. So Ajnanat vimuchyate or Samsarat vimuchyate. Either you say by knowledge you become free from ignorance or free from samsara. The same thing, but anyway, just explaining somewhat differently. What it means is Maya Bhaya Hetu Ajnanat vimuchyate. Either you can say by the knowledge one becomes liberated from samsara caused by ignorance, or by the knowledge one becomes liberated from ajnanam, which is the cause of hetu and samsara. You can be liberated from samsara caused by ajnanam, or become liberated from ajnanam which causes samsara. Karanavritya karyanavrittimaha. Karanavritya, by the elimination of cause. Karyanavritti, there is elimination of effect. Effect cannot remain when the cause goes. So what happens? When the cause is explained two ways. Either samsara is a cause or ajnanam is a cause. If that cause goes away, then the effect goes away, samsara goes away or ajnanam goes away, so mahabhaya goes away. Vimukta kamascha, that ignorance or mahabhaya or samsara, what is the characteristic of that? How do you know that there is fear in me, ignorance in me, or samsara in me? Kama. So kama, the desire, is the very symptom of ignorance or fear or samsara. So vimukta kamasya ityadi. Very interesting. Fear causes kama. Insecurity. You can say the desire is the product of fear or insecurity. There is no reason for desire otherwise. If I feel good about myself, if I am comfortable with myself, there cannot be any desire. Desire is always caused by the non-acceptance of myself or discomfort with myself, dissatisfaction with myself. There is no reason for dissatisfaction for myself. When the true nature of myself is known, which is limitlessness, there cannot be reason for dissatisfaction with myself. So dissatisfaction or non-acceptance of myself is when I find myself limited or when I project limitedness upon myself, not find myself. That's what the mind does. Mind projects what is not there. It's called vikshepa because of our ignorance. And thus it has become my habit to keep on projecting limitedness upon myself and thus branding myself inadequate because I am limited. My expectation of myself is I should be limitless. That's what I demand from myself, I should be limitless. And when I see myself limited, then I judge myself as non-acceptable. Unaccepting myself, that causes insecurity. Smallness causes insecurity because I am one among many. I am surrounded by very powerful forces, very insecure. Fear is caused, insecurity causes fear, that causes desire. So every desire can be traced to fear. Basically, desire is caused by dissatisfaction with what is. If there is satisfaction or contentment with what is, there is no reason to desire. But dissatisfaction or discontentment with what is means what I am, because of my perception of myself, projection. When I see myself small, limited, insignificant, one among many, basically the self is countless in that perception. So every self is limited, insignificant. Thus when I see myself as one among many and insignificant, then I'm afraid of my security, my well-being. That's how fear is caused. That's how desire to become free from that fear arises. So that Mahabhaya causes desire. When bhaya goes away, fear goes away, when my sense of insignificance goes away. When does that go away? When I see myself as a significant one. When? That I am the only one. For the only one, there is no cause of fear. Then I am significant. Thus, the true perception of myself eliminates the cause of self-dissatisfaction. And therefore, insignificance, fear, vimukta kamaha. So this also is a process, not that it happens in one day. I find myself progressively becoming free from desires. I find myself progressively becoming free from needs or expectations or needs, demands, expectations, desires, needs. I find myself needy when I am incomplete. So as the true nature of myself keeps on revealing itself, I see myself progressively as more and more acceptable to me. I discover a greater and greater comfort with me. Self-acceptance. More the acceptance, less the need, less the desire. So it is not that one day I become free from desire, that I find myself progressively becoming free from desires, from needs, from demands, from sense of incompleteness. Vimukta kamaha. That process culminates into total freedom from kamna, desire. Visheshena muktaha, prakarshena muktaha, prajahati. Because that mukti or freedom from kamana is experienced by us now and then. Whenever a kamana or desire is satisfied, at that moment I might see myself free from desire. But that does not last too long. Now the desire comes and takes hold of me. Similarly, in deep sleep also I am free from desire. It is waiting for me to wake up. So there is experience of freedom from desire, but that is only temporary. Vimukta kamaha. In wake of the true nature of knowledge of myself, that kamana goes away once and for all. Because the cause of kamana has gone away. In my usual experiences, kamana goes away, leaving the cause intact. So when a desire is satisfied, the desire goes away. But the cause, self-dissatisfaction remains, potentially. So also in deep sleep. So vimukta kama. Very cause of kamana goes away, then kamana cannot arise. And cause is my false perception of myself. Seeing myself as a small or insignificant creature because of ignorance. When that goes away, in the light of the true perception of myself, kamana has no scope to be there. Ashoka. You can say shoka, the grief also is cause of kamana. Kamana shows grief inside. The desire is a symptom of shoka. That's what Bhashyakara says in Bhagavad Gita, that the human problem is shoka and moha. That grief and delusion, that's the cause for raga and dvesha. Whether you call it kama or call it raga and dvesha. If kamana is divided into categories, then one is to desire something that I don't have, or desire to get rid of something that I have. Two kinds of desires can be said, raga and dvesha. Bhashyakara says raga dvesha is a symptom of shoka and moha. Imagine what a fundamental analysis there, Very profound. That's what human beings struggling with. All these psychology, we all been trying to find out reason for it. What Bhashyakara says, that shoka and the moha, that is the cause for kama, ragadvesha. How do we say ragadvesha? Well, ragadvesha brings about a desire to give up what is right for me and desire to take up something which is convenient but not right for me. Dharma and adharma. Swadharma tyaga hai, desire to give up my dharma and take up the dharma of the other one. Just as Arjuna also desired to give up his dharma, kshatriya dharma, and want to become a renunciate, take up the dharma of a beggar, of a bhikshu. So in him there was the attraction for becoming a bhikshu. Bhikshamapi haloke. Nayotsye. My dharma, I see no purpose. Nacha shevanu pashyami. So one fails to see the benefit or the real, the nature, the real value of dharma, of what is right. One fails to see the value of what is right and sees a value in what is convenient. What is right and what is convenient. For Arjuna, what is convenient, avoid this conflict. It is very painful. So this tendency of Arjuna, when he said, Nayotse, I will not fight, meaning I will not do what is right for me, and take up the life of bhikshu, which is attraction of what is convenient, that shows ragadvesha. Ragadveshas are there. Ragadveshas manifest in many ways. In the context of karma or dharma or the duty, ragadveshas manifest in this way. The tendency to avoid what is right for oneself and take up what is not right. Shreyan swadharmo vyona paradharmat sunusthita swadharme nidhanam shreya paradharmo bhayavaha. He says, nidhanam, even death, while performing one's own dharma, is more desirable. In some comfort and prosperity that you may gain by sacrificing your dharma. Anyway, so point is that this kama, the cause is shoka and moha. Moha means aviveka. Moha means false perception, false understanding about one's own self. Aviveka about one's own self, projecting upon oneself what is not there, and then grieving. I project the smallness upon myself, see myself a small, insignificant creature, and then I become sad. So shoka causes moha, moha causes shoka, and shoka causes moha, raga dvesha, samsara. And so vimukta kama charati ashoka. Kama is a symptom of shoka. Kama can go away only when shoka goes away and grief goes away. Only thing that causes grief or sadness in me is myself, nobody else. Even though Arjuna may think that I am sad because of the potential death of my near and dear ones, Arjuna is sad for his own self. Which self? We should have lost his near and dear ones. That Arjuna is the cause of grief for Arjuna. The loss of near and dear ones in itself may not do anything. The near and dear connects that loss with Arjuna. Not just a loss. But these are near and dear, ahamesham mamayete. Connected Arjuna with that death with himself. Otherwise, he could be simply a warrior. They are enemies, and my duty is to eliminate them. No connection. Here, unfortunately, the connection emerged or came or was created. So, what happens there affects here. That's the cause of Arjuna is cause of grief for himself, nobody else. Nobody grieves for anybody else. Person grieves for his own self or her own self. When somebody's death or whatever gets connected with I. So Ashoka becomes free from all the grief because he is the true perception of his own self. The false perception caused dissatisfaction of the self. That caused the grief. The true perception removes that dissatisfaction, the grief born of that. Ashoka, Sukhi. Says no separate effort is required to become Sukhi. Ashoka means Sukhi. Ashoka, free from shoka or grief. But I am not only interested in becoming free, I want to be happy, not just free from grief. They are not two different things. Happy already are. Shoka or grief is only veiling that happiness. When the veil of happiness goes away, your true nature becomes evident. Sukhi. So, Ashoka, Sukhi. Who is this? Atmavita. Tarati Shokam, Atmavit. Atmavit, Shokam Tarati, Vishoka. And we explain how Atmavit, one who has the true nature, knowledge of one's true nature, right perception of oneself, there is no reason for grief. When I see myself exactly as I want to see myself, or I find myself what I want to see myself to be. So Sukha, which is my nature, becomes evident. Sukhi. Who is Sukhi? Atmavit. This dialogue enables me to know my own self. So what does it do now? Charati wanders, moves about, aimlessly moves about, wandering in the Himalayas, not touring Himalayas. Touring has a purpose, sightseeing has a purpose, pilgrimage has a purpose, wandering has no purpose. So charati moves about aimlessly because aim is gone. Vimukta kamaha. As long as kama is there, so long aim is there, so long whatever we do is motivated by that aim. But there is no aim now. So what do? You still are alive. Vihaya kaman yas sarvan pumam sharati nispraha nirmamo nirahankaraha sashantim adhigacchati. Since the person is alive, even though he has no particular desire to be alive or to die, or no desire is there, the prarabdha keeps him alive. And prarabdha is what pushyati vapu. Prarabdha is what sustains his body, not him. So he does not interfere the functioning of prarabdha. Prarabdhaya samarpitam swavapuhu. One who has surrendered oneself to prarabdha. So prarabdha makes his body what it does, not him. That is called charati. So charati means he moves about. But in moving about, there is no prayojanam, no agenda. So moving about without agenda is called vicharanam. Moving about with agenda is called pilgrimage, sightseeing, etc., etc. Moving about without agenda is called wandering. So moves about without any personal agenda, without any agenda. Charati. Vimukta kamasya jana sada, always. Samaha, equanimous, every situation ever the same. Nirdosham is samam Brahma. Because I am Brahman, ever the same, everything is Brahman. So Brahman is nirdosham, nirgunam. Thus one who abides in that samatva is sama everywhere. So Tika says charati jivanneva bandha pratibhasa rahitasan. Bandha pratibhasa rahita. Even earlier also no bondage to really talk about. Even when he thought he was bound, there was no real bondage. A bandha pratibhasa. Merely a notion or appearance of bondage. Otherwise, if bondage was real, that could never go. Even when he thought he was bound, there was only merely a notion of bondage. So, bandha pratibhasa rahitaha. Now, free from pratibhasa, a notion of bondage. Brahmaniyo vicharati. Sama vicharati. Same vicharati. In Samam, which is Brahman, where does he move about? Uttamah Purushaha. Where does he go about? In Brahman alone, he is wandering. But that's all there is in his perception. Kritakrityo bhavati ityarthaha. Kritakrityaha becomes totally fulfilled with himself. And that way is everything else. He attains whatever needs to be attained, or whatever he thought he had to attain, then he attains. Kritakrityo bhavati sugam anyata. So, This is the result of the deliberation upon the samvada. That's why the samvada is composed by the author or the teacher, without any personal agenda. So what brings about action when you have no agenda? When there is nothing personally to accomplish, there is no personal agenda, how can there be action? That karuna alone is the cause. Karuna or compassion is what motivates or what compels a person also to do things. So that is how this dialogue has been composed by the author, the poet or bhashyakara. And that's how the iti mati vilapana prakaranam. This prakaran is a mati vilapana prakaranam, merger of the mati, merger of the mind. So nothing can merge. Only rope snake can merge. What is not there but appears to be there alone can merge or disappear. Is not only merger of the mind, it is disappearance of the mind. If mind merges, then it will come back again. And therefore the mind does not come back, the reality doesn't come back. So it is really the nasha of the mind. Mano nasha. Not mano laya. Not merger of the mind, it is nasha, the destruction of the reality of the mind. Well, that mind continues functionally for the wise person. But along with the departure of this body, mind also completely departs without leaving any trace. Otherwise, there will be the next birth. Anyway, mati vilapana prakaranam, mati nasha prakaranam. This prakarana is, the topic is mati vilapana, merger or the destruction of the mind, which is mithya. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamada Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeri Yadavibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari